Hey guys, so the next topic that we're going to be covering after exponents is square roots and cube roots. And this actually ties in really well with exponents because it's just kind of like the inverse or the backwards of exponents. So hopefully you remember kind of the general idea of a square root. If we're looking at the square root of 9, we're trying to figure out what number multiplied by itself gives us 9. So hopefully we're all aware that that answer would be 3. But then we have to think about what it means in terms of square roots with negative numbers. So if we have the square root out in front, we still take the square root of 9 first and then just kind of tack on that negative sign. So if you have negative square root of 9, then the answer would be negative 3. But then things get a little bit complicated when we deal with a negative inside the square root. Hopefully you remember that a negative times a negative is a positive, and obviously we know that a positive times a positive is a positive. So there's really nothing that we can multiply by itself to give us a negative 9, because even if we maybe thought the answer was negative 3 times negative 3 is positive 9. So that brings us to another answer up here actually. This can be 3 or negative 3. Sometimes we'll write that as positive or negative 3, like that, like a plus and a minus sign. So actually the square root of 9 is positive or negative 3. I know you always just kind of thought it was 3, but that's before we covered negative numbers. So back down here, the square root of negative 9 is no solution. We can't do it. There's no number that we can multiply by itself to give us negative 9. So we just leave it like that. We can also solve equations with square roots. So we're kind of going back to negative numbers and we're also going back to algebra a little bit. So if we have this equation x squared equals 25, remember when we solve equations we want to undo whatever's happening to x. So right now x is being squared and the inverse of square is square root. So to get x by itself we would square root both sides. That would give us x by itself because if you square a square root that leaves us with just x. And the square root of 25 is 5 or negative 5. So again, we write our answer like that, plus or minus 5. This next equation has 2 steps because we have x squared and we also have this minus 3. So remember, when you have a minus 3, to undo that, you would add 3 to both sides. That gets rid of the minus 3 over here, leaving us with x squared equal to 13 plus 3, which is 16. So now to solve x squared equals 16, we just have to square root both sides. That gets us with x by itself, and the square root of 16 is 4 or negative 4. So again, we'll write our answer like that, plus or minus 4. So we're also going to talk about cube roots. So instead of figuring out what number multiplied by itself gets you the number, you have to figure out what number multiplied by itself 3 times gets you to the number. So on your notes, I have some of the cube roots listed and the perfect cubes. I don't expect you to have those memorized, and you can look at those there. So the cube root of 8, if you think about what number multiplied by itself 3 times gets you to 8, that would be 2. Okay, because 2 times 2 times 2 gets us to 8. Same thing here, if the negative sign is out in front, we do the cube root of 8 first and then just kind of tack on that negative sign. And that would give us negative 2. And then we actually don't have that confusion with the negative sign inside of cube roots like we do with square roots. Because if you think about it, when you multiply a number times itself 3 times, you can have a negative number. Negative 2 times negative 2 times negative 2 is negative 8. So the answer to the cube root of negative 8 is negative 2. And again, you can always check your answer. Negative 2 times negative 2 is 4. And then times another negative 2, 4 times negative 2 is negative 8. So that's why the answer is just negative 2. Okay. And again, to solve these equations, same thing. Our goal is to get x by itself. Right now we have x cubed minus 2. So we'll start by undoing that minus 2 by adding 2 to both sides. That leaves us with just x cubed equal to negative 1 plus 2 is 1. And then to get x by itself, we need to cube root both sides. So that leaves us with just x equal to the cube root of 1, which is 1. Okay. So hopefully that helped you a little bit. I also have the completed notes on Schoology for you, so look over those. They'll help you out as well. And if you have any questions, email me, request a Google Meet. Again, I know these topics are a little bit more complicated, but I believe in you, and we'll get through it. See ya.